Hi everybody and welcome to another piano review here at Merriam Pianos. My name is Stu Harrison and in this video we're going to be taking a look at Yamaha's P515, the flagship of the P series, something that has really hit the market with a very big splash, lots of attention, lots of interest, and so we're very excited to add it to our collection of reviews here at the channel. We're going to be talking extensively about its action. We're going to be sampling virtually all of the sounds on there so that you can hear them at home, stereo output so that the audio is really high quality, and obviously talking about the rest of its features and maybe what other instruments you could be looking at in parallel to the Yamaha if you are on a search for an instrument in that $1,500 to $2,000 price range. So thank you very much for joining us for the video today. If it's the first time to the channel, we would really appreciate if you did subscribe. It helps us to keep informed of what you're looking for and also keeps you informed every time we produce a new video. So without further ado, let's get started on the P515 right away. The area we're going to cover with this Yamaha P515 is the sound. And the 515 is equipped with a pretty advanced tone engine. It's bringing to the table 256 maximum note polyphony. And for people out there who aren't too sure what polyphony is or why it's important to them, basically it represents the maximum number of individual tones that this can sort of simultaneously play at one time. And we've actually got a separate video on the channel just talking about exactly what polyphony is. So if for any reason you're interested in checking that out, go do so and you'll know exactly what polyphony is. But in the long and short of it is that something that can play one note at one time would have a maximum polyphony or monophony of 1. If it had 5 notes down and that was it, if you played the 6th, then the C would stop, then that would be, 5. Of course, 256 means that you could hold the pedal down, sweep all the way up and down the piano like 3 times before this is ever going to run out. So obviously, under any normal playing circumstance, 256 notes of polyphony is plenty and is sort of becoming the average for higher quality sort of $2,000 instruments and up from there. So you're not going to run into any issues with polyphony. In terms of the sound that they have loaded on here, Yamaha's got both their CFX grand piano, which is their top 9-foot acoustic grand piano. They've sampled it. It's a really nice sample that they've loaded the 515 with, as well as the Bosendorfer Concert Imperial. A few people may not be aware that Yamaha actually purchased Bosendorfer quite a few years ago, and so those two brands are often kind of linked, or you see Bosendorfer branding and Bosendorfer products creeping into Yamaha sales channels, and well, that's why. The one is owned by the other. So the first two acoustic piano samples here are the CFX as well as the Bosendorfer. And I'm just going to quickly play both of those. They're quite distinct from one another. This is the CFX. That's the CFX. Here is the Bosendorfer. Totally different sound. So one quite colorful, one quite bright and very dynamic. The Bosendorfer, definitely with a more compressed dynamic experience. And then, of course, it goes on from there into sort of less marquee sample sets, but still very interesting, very nice, very usable. This is the Studio Grand. Whoa, that's bright. Bright Grand, are you kidding? That's interesting. Bright Grand is almost less bright than Studio Grand. Ballad Grand. Oh, that's nice. Now, to my ear, that is kind of a nice blend of brightness, dark tones. Warm. Pop Grand. Jazz Grand. Or Rock Grand. Just a slammy, oh, and then honky tonk. And that's the honky tonk. So a pretty good variety of acoustic piano tones in there for you to choose from. And of course, there's this function called Piano Room, which operates very similar to what like the Roland or the Kawai functionality that's called Virtual Technician or Piano Designer. I guess on this instrument, they're calling it Piano Room. And this allows for some control of some of the nuance that you get out of that tone. For example, how tall your lid position is, the brightness of the hammer, your touch curve, your reverb depth, master tuning, damper resonance, string resonance, all kinds of really interesting stuff. So you kind of almost customize the piano tone, which is something that's becoming sort of a standard feature on any instrument in this price point. So it's nice to see that Yamaha is also doing a really nice job. I enjoy the graphical nature of how they have this set up. Some of the instruments, it's entirely just by shortcut command. You sort of can't really visualize what's happening. So it is nice that they have given you the display there, so you can navigate those menus and really never feel lost, and you know exactly what is going on. The onboard speakers are rated at 40 watts in total, so I believe what it is 15 watts per side for the main, and then it also lists like a 5-watt tweeter. Now I haven't taken a close look to see whether I think what that is it's actually like a two-way speaker, so you've got sort of a main speaker inside the cone, and then I think sort of embedded on top is an additional tweeter, and they rate those separately. If I'm wrong on that, I'm sure somebody can let me know with a helpful comment, and of course I will update the video if need be, but I believe that's how the speakers are configured. So we've got a total rated wattage of 40. That's enough to fill a small room. It certainly is enough that you don't need an amplifier to enjoy private playing, but it's not going to be enough to necessarily gig with. Maybe a very, very light rehearsal you could get away with. Other categories on here include your standard E-piano stuff, and I was playing this quite a bit earlier. So they've got a nice phaser EP. That's nice, I like that. It's like a Wurlitzer. It's like your Disney patch. That's your DX. And then stage piano. Those are also nice. The organ patches on here. Is okay in terms of the Hammond stuff. But actually the two pipe organ sounds actually like the best on here. And then you get into the clav, the vibes, the strings. And there's a little bit of hit and miss in terms of the patches in there that I think are more successful versus less. But one thing I can definitely say is that the first two categories, the piano and the E-piano, which probably the vast majority of customers are going to be focused on that, I would say the execution is really well done. The Yamaha tone is quite specific. It's a totally different experience than playing, for example, a Kawai, which tends to be a little thicker in terms of the tone and maybe a little warmer. The Roland stuff has a really wide variety of tones, and of course if it's a DP, an FP90, then you've got modeling, so a little bit of a greater variety of sound, but it's not sample based, so some people really like that, other people don't. So for people who are a fan of the Yamaha style of tone, I think they've done a really great job, and certainly I enjoy playing these sounds. They're quite nice and quite musical. Outside of the sounds, we've got sound boost and EQ, which is kind of a compression algorithm they've got, as well as the reverb engine. So I do have just the default reverb that's turned on. If you turn it off, obviously it's going to be very dry. That's totally off. And it was just on recital hall, so that's kind of their medium. There's just a little bit of ambience there, which is nice. So that's basically a wrap-up of the discussion of the tone engine and a quick review of the types of sound they have and a few other thoughts on there. So we're going to get those specs up on the screen for you, and then we're going to move on and talk about this action, which is a whole other ball game. So thanks very much for being with us for the video, and we'll be back in just a second. Let's talk about the action on this P515. It is, it's an interesting action. There are things about the action that I like, and then there are things about the action that are, what I would say is that it's important that you be aware of it. I'm not going to necessarily categorize it as a positive or negative. It's really just a, buyer beware, at least buyer be aware. Before jumping into a 515 purchase. And I'll go through it one by one. First of all, this is called the NWX Action. There are some wood components on the inside. It's sort of both visually as well as from a tactile sense gives you, I guess, a greater feeling that you are on an acoustic piano. Many digital pianos in this price range offer what's called escapement, or sometimes it's called let-off. And escapement and let-off is the sensation on a key that is caused by the jack slipping off the knuckle on a piano. That's you know, a number of that's technical. You can go and find a video on exactly what those parts are, but basically it's the point in which the mechanism releases from the key, or releases from the hammer as it's swinging up. So basically you've set the hammer in motion, it swings up, hits the string without being physically connected to anything, so it can bounce back freely, and it sort of resets the action. And on a real piano, that point in the keystroke sort of, it comes with like a little blip, like you feel it almost like the key is going over a bit of a ridge. And within the last 5 to 10 years, digital piano manufacturers have started including that sensation in the design of their keyboards to make it feel a little bit more like an acoustic. I was always puzzled by that to begin with, because I always thought that that was an unintended sensation on an acoustic piano to begin with. It's sort of an idiosyncrasy, not necessarily a benefit. But it does make you feel more familiar, more comfortable when you're in front of a digital if you've been in front of an acoustic. This has escapement. It advertises that it has escapement, but I had to actually double check that with the specs, because as I'm playing it, and even when I'm trying to detect it myself, it's so subtle that if you told me it didn't have escapement, I would believe you. So for people who are looking for a keyboard where that escapement is a little more prominent in terms of the sensation it gives you, this could be a bit of a surprise. For people who don't like the feel anyway, just ignore that it's advertising it and basically pretend that it doesn't have escapement, because that's what it feels like. The key surface on the white keys, yeah, when you can sort of look at a reflection of the light, and there's a light up there, and so I'm using that as sort of to mirror the image and tell how glossy the white key is. And you can tell that there's a little bit of a porous nature to the key, but it's more or less a polished white plastic. That's a very different approach than what most high-end digital pianos have taken within the last few years, which is to go with a pretty porous white surface to give a greater sense of texture. Or in the case of a Roland or Casio, they've actually gone with a full ivory texture, which is quite easy, quite visible to see. So this is a little bit unusual. The only drawback that a polished key surface gives is it tends to be quite grippy anytime you're in a more humid environment. And so that can sometimes make it a bit more difficult to play intricate music where your key needs to be able to, where your finger needs to be able to slide a little bit on there. Otherwise, it's just a personal choice. It's neither good nor bad. It's just something to be aware of. The black keys on it have a very, very grooved, very deep texture. This is similar, if people out there have played a new Mason and Hamlin acoustic piano in the last 10 years or so, kind of reminds me of what Mason and Hamlin's does, almost like a bare, unfinished ebony wood type of texture. Again, it's quite a bit different than what you get on most digital pianos, so that's something that you could really, really like or appreciate. But it is going to be a bit of a surprise if you aren't aware of it and it hasn't been on your radar in terms of specs that you're researching. So almost no texture on the white keys and exaggerated texture on the black keys. There's a triple sensor in the keyboard, so just like any other triple sensor, you're going to have nice, accurate MIDI output, which is great. But coming to the last subject, and probably the one that I need to address most directly, which is the weight of the keys. Before I reviewed the 515, I'd been on a number of forums, which I regularly do before I review anything, because I'm always curious to see what parts of the instrument have received more interest and more attention, so perhaps I could focus on that, or at least I'm always curious to see whether my own impressions are either validated by or disproved by, or how much my impression aligns with kind of the general opinion out there. And the weight of the keys I'd seen come up a little bit. I wouldn't say that it was a prominent comment, but a few people had made the comment that the keys were heavy. I come from an acoustic piano world originally, where an acoustic piano should have a key weight, meaning the amount of weight that it takes to put the key in motion, is probably anywhere from about the mid 40s at the very lowest up to about 60 grams at the very heaviest. And most concert technicians usually try and weight the key, depending whether it's the bottom of the piano or the top of the piano, anywhere from the low to high 50 grams. These keys are considerably heavier than that. I guess in that respect, it's consistent with some of the larger Yamaha stage pianos of the past, like the CP300, which was a monstrous keyboard, sort of these big rectangular speakers there. I played one of those for years in a pit band. Had really, really heavy keys as well. And so this is something that Yamaha's user community may just be used to and appreciates and likes. But for somebody who's not used to it, playing on this instrument for an extended period of time, I actually get kind of fatigued. And I'm somebody who's used to playing multiple gigs per week and having those gigs be 3-4 hours long, and really giving her heart on whatever instrument I'm playing it. So I'm not saying that as somebody who doesn't have well-conditioned playing muscles. It's really heavy. I'd love to wait it out. But I do know that in another comparison video, I even put my iPhone on 3 of the keys and they didn't budge. And on all of the other instruments I was doing it, I was getting some motion. So I'm not trying to, I hope this isn't coming across as necessarily a negative, because I'm only trying to present it as a, hey, be aware that these keys are going to be heavier. You may love it. It may be exactly what you're looking for, and so for people who are looking for a lot of sense of depth to the key, and maybe they're a harder player to begin with, perhaps this is exactly what you're looking for. But just something to be aware of, that we're talking about a key that is totally probably, like honestly, in the 70 gram range. Still very responsive, still very accurate. So anyway, that's the NWX action. We're going to move on to the final phase of the review, where we talk about some of the other features as well as the cabinet and connectivity options. So thanks again for sticking with us. We're going to throw those specs up on the screen and we'll be back in just a second. So the Yamaha P515 has a number of matching accessories that go with it. This is consistent with what you generally find in the market from your major manufacturers. Good comparisons to the 515 would be the Roland FP60 or FP90. The Kawai ES8 is another really good comparison. So the first thing that's included with the Yamaha is you've got a nice beefy sustain pedal. I really like that. I hate when digital pianos come with those little plastic square pedals that just skid all over the place. They really suck. This is good. It's got a half pedaling option. It also comes with an integrated music stand. We have taken it off for the purpose of this video, but it would sit right here, so there's no need for an external video or an external music stand rather. And then from Yamaha as well, you've got available a matching stand for the keyboard itself. Sort of matches the furniture and makes it look a little bit more like a stationary piano, and then a triple pedal system that you can plug into this as well. Kind of turn it into a home digital. So that's all available on the 515. You've also got independent 1/4 inch audio outs here, and I don't know if you can see it in the bottom of the camera frame, but that's actually how we've captured the audio for this video. So you're not hearing it through a microphone. You're actually getting this direct from the 1/4 inch outs in stereo. It's got a mini jack audio input, which is pretty handy. It is also got a Bluetooth radio, and I have to give kudos to Yamaha in terms of how easy it is to turn on and off the Bluetooth radio. That's something that's sometimes a bit buried in the manual or a little harder to access. You have to do it through shortcut commands. It's nice and very easy to get to through the display, which is really awesome. And then last but not least, you've got your USB connection that heads out to the computer. It also acts as a USB audio. So the Yamaha P515 is going to work really well if you've got some external software instruments that you're using. So let's say you've got a laptop, you've got Logic open or Ableton or something, and you're using the Yamaha as a MIDI controller, and that's triggering instruments in an external device. That could even be a tablet these days with, you know, GarageBand or something. And then the sound there is actually coming back through the MIDI channel and is outputting through the 1/4-inch outputs on the 515. So there's no need for any of this external mixing. It all goes in and out through the MIDI cable, or through the USB cable rather, so that's super handy. On the front of this, you've got a USB device port here. Really, that's entirely for things like audio recording, so you can plug that in and you can record wave straight to here. That's pretty handy, especially for teachers. I know that's a feature that we use a lot here at the school, and it's something that I know on the Kawai ES8 had that out for a while. It was one of the first ones to offer it in a portable function. It was really, really handy. Yamaha's got the same thing. Very easy to use. In addition to all of those kind of physical connectivity options, this has got all the standard kind of digital piano features that you would expect. You've got transpose, you've got split, you've got dual mode. We already mentioned that you've got the sound boost and you've got the EQ. You've got transpose. I can't remember if I already mentioned that. If I did, my apologies. And like I said, with some of these other options or other menu settings, really like how they've used the display to effectively lay out all of your options for everything from transpose to rhythm to Bluetooth. It's all there. And then the very last function I'm going to make you aware of is the rhythm function, because this is an onboard auto accompaniment function. And the ease of which they've set this up is really great. You can set whether you want the auto you can set whether you want the auto start and the auto finish, whether you want the bass to be playing or not, whether you want it to be synced. It's actually a ton of fun. So for people who are using this maybe for some light professional applications or just having a blast at home, it's always nice to have that onboard feature. Yes, there's tons of software options that will emulate that, but there is something to be said for having the ease of use right on the instrument and ready to go. So that just about wraps up our review of the Yamaha 515, an instrument that is definitely focused on delivering, you know, a really quality piano experience. Very impressed with the acoustic piano sounds on here. E-piano sounds are also really, really solid. Easy to use piano editing module inside. Layout very nice, and clear speakers. Like we were talking about the action, be aware that this is a heavier action. Somebody who isn't accustomed to that or isn't expecting that, this might cause a bit of buyer's remorse, so just be ready for the 515 to be a heavier action. Otherwise, this could be a bit of an unpleasant experience. But otherwise, a capable instrument, and certainly anyone who is in the market for a high-end, all-in-one portable digital piano, you're in the $1,500 to $2,000 range. Before you go out and you pick up your Roland FP or your Kawai ES8, make sure that the Yamaha 515 is also on your list. Definitely worth a checkout, and I hope you've enjoyed the video. So thanks very much for being here. Please let us know what you thought. We always love the comments. We try and reply to as many as we possibly can. And subscribe if you can. Just hit that button. It helps you stay up to date every time we come out with a new video, and we're always doing our best to create engaging content, useful content to help your piano experience be that much more fun out there in piano land. So we'll see you back for another video very shortly. My name is Stu Harrison. You've been at Merriam Pianos. Have yourself a great day.